Welcome back to the Confab experience. I hope everyone is having a great day.
Yes.
Thank you guys for being here. Lovely to see you ladies as always.
Hey.
So as you know, it is close to back to school time. And however that's going to work, but back to school is happening.
Who knows?
Whether in person or over the interwebs.
Homeschool life.
So in light of that, I thought maybe we could talk just a little bit about education. Education in America, higher education, all kinds of things that we could talk about. Sound good?
So good.
I'm ready for it.
I'm with it.
All right. So then with that, we all know what time it is. It is time for Feast or Famine. So just getting started, I thought I would ask you guys, I know there are a lot of like real world things that people don't necessarily learn, and they say, oh, I wish I would have learned this in school. Can you guys think of anything that you wish you had learned in school?
Yes, I wish that they would have went over like household budgets more, like how to work out. You got this much money coming in, you got this much bills going out, like just real regular stuff.
Yeah,
I don't think that there's enough time spent on that in school, high school, whatever.
No,
what age do you think that they should have just started it from the start? You think maybe?
Yes.
Like when they start teaching, like when they start teaching about like coins. I don't know. I think that there should be like a real life component to these math, like the math problems that they're putting out there.
Decimals, fractions.
If annihilators, now and laters, or what do they call now and laters cost 25
Did you say annihilators?
I put it real together. Annihilators with annihilators cost XYZ. Now and laters.
She was just reminding y'all that she's from New York. Annihilators.
Or she's a fan of Anaya Lewis, that's the Anaya. Okay. Annihilators.
I don't know that.
Yes, you guys do know. Anyway, we can come back.
I know who you're talking about.
Yes.
She's good.
No, so I definitely wish that I was taught more about finances. Like I feel like that is something that as an adult, I'm figuring out all of that kind of stuff from income, expenses, debt, but then even like how to save money, how to invest money, how to buy stocks. Like I have friends who at a really young age, as their like Christmas present or birthday present, like they were gifted stocks in like, like high school and middle school. And I know that as part of their like home life, even like that was part of the conversation. And so if you come from a family that maybe that's not part of the conversation, and then you also go to school and you're not being taught that, like how do you learn? You're behind the 8 ball and you have to catch up.
I definitely feel, like where I got in my most financial trouble is when I got to college. So, I mean, so many things could be avoided if I had just learned what a credit card was, what it meant, what not to do. Hey, if you get offered a free t-shirt, that doesn't mean you should sign up for a credit card. Yes. I think I signed up for a credit card for like a pack of M&Ms. Like it was ridiculous. So if like you just had like some basic knowledge of like you could get in really big trouble if you do this kind of stuff. And even if you do get one, this is how you use it. I think so many people would avoid pitfalls. Not to mention like learning what student loans are and like how to, pick a good one, how to like plan all that out. That would also be helpful. I don't know. I didn't have student loans. I'm sorry, but I'm sure it's a a big thing that would have been helpful to know at the time.
I just think credit altogether, like credit, how it works.
Yeah.
Yes.
Budgets, credit, all that stuff. And if you are fortunate enough to live in a household where that is talked about, like my dad definitely, I remember from young, being like, this is how we work our budget out, and these are the envelopes where we get paid. We put it in these, envelopes or whatever. They used to do that system. So that's cool, but what if you didn't have that? You know what I mean? Like, that's definitely something that should be across the board, because it's something that you need. They worry so much about I don't even know what's something that we tangent something or another. I have no idea.
Right.
Never used that.
Never used it
ever in my life.
What did I think about these 12 years? What did I learn? Yes. So I actually agree with you guys wholeheartedly, but I think the thing that I wish that we would have learned in school was entrepreneurship and how to believe in ourselves. I think that everybody talks about the American dream and how to, like, if you just get out there, you can do everything, you can make it or what have you. And I definitely think that there's a lane for that, for, school is a part of that. But I just wish that they would have put some effort into teaching, or at least my school didn't, how, if you want to start a business, how you start a business, what that looks like, how that takes, maybe starting like a fake business in school and seeing if you could build it up, and what, you have to do in order to make it work. That I really wish that they taught that. But I'm starting to think, the older I get, that school is like to teach us like how to work in factories. And what I mean by that is but what I mean by that is, when I was researching schools for my little one, they talked about how teaching hasn't changed in the last 100 years. You sat in rows, you sat in desks, and that was to get the American worker ready for working in a factory. And so it wasn't about like entrepreneurship. It wasn't about like getting out there and like doing XYZ. It was about like working your company job for a really long period of time, having the company take care of you with your pension, and everything is okay. But that's not the world we live in. Right. And so I just wish that school would have kind of changed with the times and taught me that.
I heard someone say sometime, and I'll have to find it, that it was a public speaker. He said something about how most children are born and think at like a genius level. Like they're geniuses when they're born. By the time they're like 8 years old, only like half of them are still thinking of that level. And by the time they hit middle school, like 8% of them are thinking at that level. Something, my numbers aren't right, but something like that.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's beaten out of them basically how to like be critical thinkers and how to be creative, because you have to do this, and there's only one right answer, and you have to do it this way, and this is the process, and that's the way that you do it. So I understand completely what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you guys, they are making some changes to like how they teach kids nowadays. So I know when I was in school, memorization was the thing, right? And you guys all probably, are right there. You memorized your times tables.
Tables.
Exactly.
Now, did you not memorize your times tables?
I was just really about to make a thing like, no, Monique, I'm not right there with you, but that's neither here nor there.
Anyway, but my niece and nephew are in school now, and they teach them math in a completely different way. And
Common Core.
Honestly, it is so hard for me, because it's like, I have no idea what this is. I do not understand. But my niece and nephew, they're like, Auntie, you have to think of strategies to come up with the problem. The answer doesn't matter as much as coming up with the strategy to get to
in math. Answer. The answer matters in math. You can't be close in math. It's true. You have to be precise in math.
I understand, right? I get you. And I was like saying, wait, even though math is like my worst subject, but the way they think things out, and they have to, it's just not memorized. It's actually teaching them to process it, to think about it. Why is this answer correct? Why do you get there? How do you get there? Like, writing everything out, like such long ways and everything, just getting them to stretch how they think of things. And I don't know that it is the end all be all, but it definitely is a complete change to how we were taught.
Yeah, no, when my son, he started out at like a classical school that taught the way I learned. And then he moved to a public school when he was in 4th grade. And literally his teacher was like, I'm going to be teaching him math completely differently. Do not try to help him with his homework because you will only mess him up.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, 4th grade is about my math proficiency anyway. So, but yeah, it was so, and I get, like, I think at the time she said something like, oh, we're teaching them to think in a less linear way and more strategic. And I'm kind of like, what was wrong with the way that we were doing it though? Like, bridges were built and the internet was invented on the way back has always been learned. I don't know. It would be interesting to see like how that, I don't know when Common Core started, but how that manifests itself in the future. If it's better, kids are thinking so strategically now because of the new math.
So I do remember, speaking of memorization, I had a history teacher he was like, had a military background, and he would walk up and down the aisles and he would just like dictate history to us. And then we had to shorthand take notes. And then our homework every night was to transcribe the notes, the exact notes that we'd shorthand taken. And it was it was the same homework. Like there's nothing like mysterious about what we needed to do. Every day was the same way.
Right.
And I just don't learn that way. So like, I just wouldn't do it. So he would always have to like give me detention and hold me back. I just like refuse. He's like, what is hard about this? He would always call us by our like last names and like very like military. And I'm like, it just didn't work for me. Like I didn't take that knowledge in. But now you guys have heard about the Ron Clark Academy, right?
Yes.
And how he like teaches the students differently and has them sing and like, just doing different things so that people can take in the information, because not everybody processes information in the same way. So I don't know. I think that it's kind of nice to see that like schools are evolving in that way that they're teaching students, because not everybody can learn in the same way.
Right.
So we touched on this a little bit. Stacia did when she was talking about entrepreneurship. So I've had this conversation with my son because he's in high school, and he has come to the not the realization, but he has admitted to himself that like college, I mean, I always thought college is not for everyone, but I feel like when we were in school, like that was the track. That was the path to success, was you go to college. It was like a very kind of 1980s, 1990s. This is the goal. You go to college, you get a good job working in a high-rise building in New York City. And that was the definition of success. You wore a suit to the office every day. And you were like a powerful person. And so everyone that I knew was like, have to go to college, have to go to college. But these days there are just so many other ways to find success and so many ways to gain knowledge. Is college still the be all and end all? Is it necessary, or is it sort of like a false promise, if you will?
I think we were set up in thinking. I think we were set up in being taught that college was the end all be all to begin with. I was I'm getting some work done in my house, and the guy who's doing it, he said, there are no more plumbers and like carpentry and electricians. The average age for a plumber is like 50 something years old. People are not like going into that field anymore. However, we are not lacking of plumbing work.
Right.
Like, and I think everybody kind of, like you said, brought into that whole idea. I think it was never the end all be all. But because everybody was kind of being pushed on that track, it was like either you were making it or you weren't. So like so many people kind of got pushed off to the side because they weren't on the college track. I think now entrepreneurship and the web, forget it. The web has opened up so many other avenues to wealth.
People want to be influencers now. Like that's a job.
It's a whole job.
Goal.
Yeah.
Not to roll my eyes at it or anything. It was just never something that you would even conceptualize when we were, you know, a teenager.
Absolutely true. Yeah, no, Monique, I couldn't agree with you more. Like, I think that not only do I think it was a setup, I think that it's like part of some kind of, like, I feel like a bee sometimes, you know, like you're just going about doing the job for
like a bumblebee.
Like a bumblebee,
okay.
like
a worker bee,
a worker bee, exactly, like a worker bee. Like I'm just like just following along, and it's almost it's kind of disheartening because you're in school, and I would not have traded my days in college for anything, because I think you get real, true, like I met you guys, well, Siobhan and Leanna, that's how we met in school. I think that's where I grew up. I think that's where I learned who I was as a person. I think there are a lot of life lessons that I would not have gotten if I would have stayed home. And I think that college allows for you to have that opportunity, that bridge, and on the in-between, between real life and adulthood, where you can kind of figure things out. So I do just want to say that. But I think the price for that lesson is so high, and the return on investment is not always there. It's not always there. And because most people go in for a liberal arts, kind of degree, it then becomes hard when you leave school and the average American is making somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000, which is a fine living, except the thing that they don't talk about is the fact that, like, this cost of living keeps going up. So what seemed like a pretty decent living, you're struggling on, but you're working just as hard every day at these jobs. And that's why I think, like, I'm with you, Monique. It's definitely a setup. It's a setup for sure.
And I also think not only is college completely overpriced nowadays, but if you think about it, or when I think about it, it's like, how many of us are actually working in the fields that we went to school for? And think of the people that you know. Are they working in the fields that they went to school for? I know very few people who are doing it. And so you can kind of make the argument that, like, job skills are learned on the job and not in college. So
true.
I think that there are so few professions that you actually need to go to school for. Like, day one, you have to have this knowledge. Doctor, engineer, maybe a lawyer, maybe not. I mean, Kim Kardashian is becoming a lawyer without going to law school, right? So
yeah.
So it's sort of like, it's almost like the whole structure needs to be rethought. Like, I just feel like, you know, you can go to college, get some like basic critical thinking skills, learn how to work in groups, things like that, if you didn't get that in high school. And then you just do job training for a couple of months and then you're sent on your way. I mean, everything I learned about my job, I learned on the job.
Right.
I mean, I can say I went to school for a certain thing, but it doesn't translate.
Right.
So
yeah, I completely disagree with you guys. So so while I agree that college is not for everybody, and I think there needs to definitely be more openness to that. And if there was a clearer way before you get to college and before you decide to go to college to like self-identify as I want to be a plumber, or I want to learn this trade, or, you know, whatever it is. I think, Stacia, to your point, a lot of people get to college, and because they're doing a lot of that like self identifying, self-discovery, then they might at that point be like, hey, college isn't for me, and you're already 2 years in and you've already incurred this debt, right? And we know that 44 million Americans have student loan debt. I think it's
Do we know that?
Yeah,
1.4
trillion dollars of student loan debt, and 44 million Americans. I think it's like $30,000 is the average student loan debt. Okay.
Yeah.
Feels about right.
So I agree that there needs to be something where you can opt out, and you actively opt out. But for me, the network that I built at my undergrad, the network that I built in grad school, while I agree it wasn't like, okay, I have this skill that I learned in undergrad that I'm not using every day at my job, I do think that when you look at my resume, the fact that there's this solid education background gets me into the door and gets me having these conversations that I don't know that I would be where I am or have what I have or be in any of those doors if not for the solid education background. So I pay a student loan payment every month, and I have for the last X amount of years.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the changes that I would make looking back is like, did I need to go to a school that was out of state? Like, should I have put as much weight on that as I did? Like, would it have made more sense for me to go in state so that I could come out with no debt? Like, those are the difference. I think that's what I would change in my decision making, but I don't know that I can say that, we've all been sold a bill of goods.
So I want to be clear on that. It's not that I don't think going to school has no value, because I think you're right. And I think where you're going to school, the network that you get, it is fantastic. Like, we wouldn't be together if not for having gone to school. There's a pride that I feel, and I don't begrudge my student loan because I know what that got me, all of that great stuff. I think I'm just agreeing with Siobhan on the sense of you rarely use what you're given in school unless you're in certain fields when you actually go to work. Like, it's not like you have to go to school for communications in order to get a job doing XYZ. You could go to school and do art and still come out and get a job working as a teller at a bank. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's, I think, what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't know how to say it any differently.
Well, I don't begrudge my going to college either. I think it's great. All of the same things you guys said with regards to my network, the people I met, just kind of, but I think most of what I feel I got from school is like a social, a growing up, that kind of a thing. It's more of a coming of age kind of a story, or like those 4 years are really important to me. And so, yeah, like student loans, it's a thing, but it's like, it's just like the light bill. It's just a thing. And I tell, I tell folks too, when they're going away to school, like kids in high school, I always tell them, go away. If you can go away, if you can swing it, go away, but not for the job part of it. That's where I just don't think I agree. Like, I don't know that it is as I don't think that it is as important as they made us believe that it is, especially with all of these people who get like crazy rich, not having gone to school ever. Like, right. There's all of this, there's a whole bunch of opportunities for that, growth that have nothing to do with school.
Right.
And I think that if you're in that small percentage of people, like like a Steve Jobs or what, Bill Gates,
Mark Zuckerberg.
If you are in that,
founder of Spotify, founder of WordPress, like all of the big tech companies, no one went to college. No one finished college.
Yeah.
When you think about that number of people as a percentage of all people who are so like genius and self-driven and like, you know, all of those criteria that you have to have in order to be a Mark Zuckerberg, like he is an anomaly, in my opinion. That's not, he is an exception to the rule, not the rule with which you base your life decisions. Like that's.
I also think that it is interesting that we have kids, 7. I was 17 years old when I went to college. 17 years old, making their decision for their life. Like you're making the choice right now. What are you going to do? Where are you going to go? And like this step sets you up for the rest of your like career, your whole. Some people it works out perfectly. Some people it doesn't. And I just feel like there could be some like in between kind of, if you're not, you know, totally, I know I'm going to be a doctor. I know I want to be a lawyer and going towards that. Yeah. If that's not, you know, completely driven towards whatever it is, there should be some kind of in between, like adult with training wheels
gap
situation.
Year.
Yeah. Like,
well, it's funny. So my mom is a retired university professor. So she has seen her fair share of people, you know, coming into school unprepared, you know, just because they thought that they had to. And she's maintained for years, I mean, she said this when I was in high school, that there should be a requirement, like a 2-year service requirement between high school and college. So you should either have to join like the military, join the Peace Corps, or join, you know, some like Teach for America or something like that before you go, because then you get your grow up phase, you go away, you're doing some good, you know, for some cause. And you can kind of figure yourself out before you spend tens of thousands of dollars on something that might not be for you.
Right.
No, I thought that was an interesting idea. And my mom is a woman who didn't go to school right away. So she went on to get her undergraduate, graduate, PhD, be a university professor, and worked at a bank for like 2 or 3 years before she went to school, because then she realized, I think this is what I want to do. I actually want to go to school. I'm going to put in the effort to go and work hard when I get there.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I always thought that was a great idea. I didn't do it.
Right.
But, I actually don't think you can be. My sister was in the Peace Corps. I think you have to have a college degree to be in the Peace Corps.
I think so too. I looked into it one time.
Yeah, like so many people could be doing so much good. Why
I love
have to have a college degree to volunteer? I don't know.
Right.
I love the idea of a figure yourself out year. Figure yourself out 2 years.
Yeah.
Like we're all living longer, and I feel like, you know, there's no need now to just go straight through. Like you could take time before college, and you can take some time after college or trade school, or, you know, whatever it is, and travel the world if you have the means to do that, you know.
But to Monique's point, like go away. Like don't spend your 2 years in your mom's basement. Like go away. That's the thing, have to pay a bill. Yeah.
But you can't go away because there it is. Because
the means are important. The means is an important thing. Like going away to college is the only way. Like I'm going to take these loans out and I'm going to go to college because that's the way I'm getting out of this house. Like, you know, if there was some other program, some other kind of, you know, situation that people could, you know, be teenagers or 18, 19 and go away to and do, that'd be great. But right now, college that's the thing. That's the ticket out.
Yeah. And I know what I wanted to say. It's that I feel like it has become a racket. Like, I feel like it costs so much to get these great 4 years. These great 4 years are going to cost you so much money. And I actually think that like we are on like the tipping point of before it became like so astronomical to go to school.
I agree.
so like, I'm looking at it from the vantage point. I wouldn't have changed the school that I went to because I think that matters. I wouldn't have like stayed in state. I had the opportunity and there were tons of great schools to do it and scholarships to do it, but I didn't want to. I wanted to go to the top 20, top 30 school. Like I wanted to do it. It felt good to do it. But would I want to do that for $100,000?
Right. Right.
I don't know. Would I want to do that if somebody would have explained to me that, okay, so you spend this $100,000 for education, which I think you can't. Knowledge really is power. I believe that. But you spend this $100,000 and then you get this $30,000 job or $40,000. I think my first real job, I was making like, I don't think that matters, but like $12 an hour. You get this $12 an hour job, which there's a lot of people who are making that. And you still have to do your rent. You still have to get your car payment because you got to get to the job. You still have to eat. And do you want to do something? And then you still have the student loan that you have to pay back every year.
Brings us all back to the original question of us learning budgets and credit, and all that.
Yeah. True story.
Continue the experience on our social media handles at the Confab Experience.